let us start from where we have ended. Um, I should mention here that although the other side make little of him, Senanaik is not to be trifled with. So, what he is saying, the narrator is saying that the extreme point Senanaik can go to, the extreme point to which Senanaik can go to, should not be dealt with in a light way. ওকে ট্রিফেলড মানে হচ্ছে বা ট্রাইফেল মানে হচ্ছে তুচ্ছ, ঠিক আছে? তাকে তুচ্ছ করে দেখা চলবে না. whatever his practice in whatever his practice in theory, he respects the opposition, respects them because they could be neither understood nor demolished. If they were treated with the attitude, it is nothing but a bit of impertinent game playing with guns. So what we find, in practice, the thing that he is doing is not being proposed by him in theory, or the theory does not propose the things that he is doing in practice, because there is always a basic difference, or a what can you say, the difference of the theory and the practical experiences. It is very pertinent for the engineers, it is very pertinent for anyone. You will see in theories that the life is much more presented in a systematic way, which falls under all the formulas. You do this and you will get this, right? But in practice you do not get such things. তুমি যা হচ্ছে প্র্যাকটিস করবে, বা তুমি যখন প্র্যাকটিস করতে যাবে তখন দেখবে থিওরির সেই ফর্মুলায় আসছে না, একটা প্লাস মাইনাস জিনিস থাকে. সো এনিওয়ান হু হ্যাজ বিন ইনটু সায়েন্স অর এনি কাইন্ড অফ ল্যাবরেটরি ওয়ার্ক, who have gone through all these experiments, can see, or have seen rather, that they cannot exactly get the same amount. There will be always plus minus 1, plus minus 2, right? So what we find over here is that when Senanaik is dealing with the opposition, that is the left, extreme left politics, that is the Maoist, so to say, when he is dealing with them, he actually respects the opposition, okay, because they could not be understood, not demolished. But in practice he should have the attitude of demolishing them, because that is his job, right? So what we find here is that this destruction of the enemy, for destroying an enemy you need to become an enemy, okay? So that is what is being written in the next line only. In order to destroy the enemy, become one. As I was telling in the previous, I don't know with you only or not, I think with you, इंतकाम सिर्फ इंतकाम लेना जानती है. I was bringing in the dialogue from Haider film. So what does this mean? Revenge brings revenge, okay? Violence brings violence. তুমি একজনকে ভায়োলেন্স দিয়ে দাবিয়ে রাখতে চাইলে, সেই ভায়োলেন্সটা তার মধ্যেও কিন্তু ভায়োলেন্সের আগুনটা ছড়িয়ে দিলে, সে যখনই হচ্ছে সুযোগ পাবে সেই ভায়োলেন্সের রিটার্ন একটা জবাব দেবে, right? So what we find here is that this theoretical understanding of them is in the books, but in practice when you try to understand them, you are left to becoming their enemy when you are trying to suppress them. That is what is happening, because this is happening only because we do not we are not thinking them, or we are not seeing their problems in a compassionate way, okay? আমাদের কাজ কি, আমাদের হচ্ছে যে কোনো প্রবলেম হচ্ছে সেই প্রবলেমটাকে সলভ করা, বাট the nature of government, the nature of police, the nature of anyone in this story is such that if you are talking against me, you are my enemy. Okay, so what we find here is that this compassionate attitude, which lacks in this ruling class of this story, Draupadi, is clearly evident, where the subaltern sections have taken up arms, have taken up all the weaponry in order to challenge the system, challenge the society, challenge the social order. You need to hear them out, right? You need to hear them out in order to mitigate the problems, right? But what we find here is that when the moment the system is being challenged by the weaker sections of the society, the subaltern mean, as I have told you before, the lowest in post-colonialism, it is the classes of people or the sections of society who are at the margins of society, who are not at power. Clear? Simple definition. You can do your higher studies in subaltern studies, for your masters, for your PhD and everything. So what we find here is that this compassionate attitude is lacking over here. In reality, in today's reality, not in story, we find that the Maoist attacks and Maoist activities have lessened. Why? Is it only because, I am talking about West Bengal, is it only because of the hard rule of killing them? I don't think so. If you remember the area of Jhargram and all the areas which were thought to be or considered to be the Maoist belt, is now quite, what can you say, quiet, right? No activities as such. Why? Because of the actions taken by the government. What are the actions? The government has taken some actions like in a compassionate way, where they are giving them job, where they are making them or helping them to bring back into the mainstream. Why they were protesting, why they were killing in Draupadi, why they were killing the Sahukars and the moneylenders and all other people? Because they were relegated to the margins. And when you are relegated to the margins, you will be oppressed, you will be destroyed, you will be a non-entity in the society, in the state, right? And this needs to be changed everywhere. Subaltern can be anywhere. সেটা তোমার মহিলাও হতে পারে, সেটা কোনো ক্লাসে একটা পিছিয়ে পড়া বাচ্চাও হতে পারে. So what should we do? We should be compassionate enough to bring everyone who is in the margins, to be able to give them the channel, to give them the way, to give them the chance to be a part of the mainstream of the society. তারা কিছু পাচ্ছে না বলেই তো হচ্ছে বিদ্রোহ করেছে, তাই না? But unfortunately most government does not think in this way. I am not propagating any political party or any government, but this is the way to deal with it. Unfortunately in this story that is not being done. They are being held in a way where it is the hard way, better to say. So what we find here is that thus he understood them by theoretically becoming one of them. So he is understanding them because he has become one of them, because he has become their enemy. Okay, he hopes to write on all this in future. He has also decided that in his written work he will demolish the gentleman and highlight the message of the harvest workers. তাহলে দেখ, the dicey situation of this portion is the dicey situation or the dilemma or the difference between action and the message of Senanayak is. What is the difference? He is willing to talk about, he is willing to write about this harvest workers, the people who are now challenging the government, challenging the authority of government, challenging the hand of the government, the police of the government. In simpler terms, okay, he is going to demolish the gentleman class who are at the center of the society, and he would be writing for this harvest workers, highlighting the message of the harvest workers, so that he will be able to bring the problems of these people into the limelight. But now what he is actually doing, he is actually acting as an agent of the government who is trying to put down this rebellion. Okay, so this dicey situation, this difference between the practical and the theoretical perspective is being shown over here between Senanayak. But as I choose the word dilemma, right, this word dilemma also does not put into place. এই dilemma শব্দটাও কিন্তু এখানটা appropriate না. Senanayak is not at all in dilemma. He is quite clear about his understanding. Why? Because he is not saying যেটা করা উচিত কি করা উচিত না. He is quite sure of what his actions would be. His actions would be based on in which situation he is in. Okay, now presently he is the hand of the government, he is in charge of the government, so his action is to destroy the opposition, that is the rebellion, right? But the very moment he has retired, the very moment he is in a place where he can critique the government, he will do so. He will take the voice of these underprivileged sections of the society in order to be the voice of them. So what we see in Senanayak? In Senanayak, for me, he is a character who takes the best of both worlds, and that is also the character or the characteristics of the Bhadralok society or the gentleman society. Why? Because এই যে ভদ্রলোক সেকশন বা মানি লেন্ডার্স বা সাহুকার্স বা আরও যারা যারা রয়েছে, they are actually trying to get everything for their own benefit, right? Senanayak is also no different. He is taking the benefit of the government facilities by destroying the opposition of the government, not the political opposition but the rebellion, and he is taking a name or making a name for him, right? And similarly what we find, when he will retire, as we can see, he has also decided that in his written work, right, he will write this, but when he is not at job of the government. You might ask me, or you might say that it is his moral compunction that is allowing him to write this book or write this about the harvest workers. But my answer would be, if the moral punctuation questions him or pricks him, then the moral compunction would not allow him to be such a disastrous entity for the rebellious persons. Okay, moral compunction prick korle, it cannot categorize and compartmentalize. It can never compartmentalize. Okay, যে আমি এখন এইটা করব, today I will do this, today I will oppress the rebels, and when I retire I will talk about them. This is not the way you should deal with it, right? So what we find, what we see over here is that all these presentations are actually what? All these presentations are actually the description of the hypocrisy of the society. Hypocrisy of the people, not the whole of the society, but the people who are at the center. They have the power to control everything. Okay, when they are in power to destroy the rebellion, they will destroy, and later they will talk about in good terms about the harvest workers. Clear? এটাই হচ্ছে problem. Clear? This mental process might seem complicated, but actually he is a simple man and is as pleased as his third great uncle after a meal of a turtle meat. Description দিয়ে লাভ নেই. This process, as I have already explained you about his mental process, he has been acting as a person who is self-centered enough to destroy the rebellious activities and also talk about them in his book when he will write, obviously. In fact, he knows that, as in the old popular song, turn by turn the world will change, and in every world he must have the credentials to survive with honor. If you have the book printed, underline it. Okay, so see, this is what happens in society. সবাই পাল্টে যায়, সোসাইটির মতো সবাই হচ্ছে, সোসাইটি যেমন পাল্টাতে থাকবে সবাই পাল্টাতে থাকবে, নিজের রং বদলাতে থাকবে. That is what is being done over here. The police, the army, or anyone who has been torturing the people will actually change their mold, change their mask the moment they are in a different world, the moment they are in a different sphere where they will actually try to portray another image which might be completely opposite to it. Okay, opposite to the image that they had before. Clear? So what we see over here is that at every world he must have the credentials to survive with honor. For him, his honor is the most important thing. Right? So he is not concerned about the harvest workers' demand. His main motive is to survive. His main motive is to survive with honor. For his own existence, he will do anything which will actually bring him honor. Right? So what we find here is that this is the Bhadralok class. These are the people who are at the center. তারা সাপের গালেও চুমু খাবে, ব্যাঙের গালেও চুমু খাবে. ঠিক আছে? কেন? কারণ হচ্ছে তাদের ইম্পর্টেন্স কি, তারা নিজেরা হচ্ছে পাওয়ারে থাকতে চায়, তারা নিজেরা হচ্ছে পাওয়ারটাকে হচ্ছে কন্ট্রোল করতে চায়. ঠিক আছে? দে never want to be out of power. They never want to be in the margins. Right? So even when they are talking about the peoples at the margin, they will speak as if they are helping them, they are trying to help them, but from the comfort of their drawing rooms, from the comfort of their study table. Okay? When nothing will hamper them. That is what this society is. Clear? And what we find? We find this very characteristic is clearly evident in Mr. Senanayak. Clear? If necessary, he will show the future to what extent he alone understands the matter in its proper perspective. See the change. See the perspective. He is quite able to understand the perspective. He is quite adept with the circumstances. Right? So what he is saying? He is saying he will show the world how much he cares about it, how much he has knowledge about it. Right? And what we find? By doing so, he is actually taking benefit. He is actually taking, what can you say, the ideology of getting what he wants. Clear? সেখানটায় কি? সেখানটায় হচ্ছে তার নিজের বেঁচে থাকাটাই হচ্ছে আসল, সে দেখাবে যে সে কত ভালো, সে দেখাবে যে তার কত আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডেবল পাওয়ার রয়েছে, আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং পাওয়ার রয়েছে, আর কতটা কম্প্যাশন রয়েছে তোর এই মাওয়িস্ট বা লেফটিস্ট ইয়ের প্রতি, তোর আপরাইজিংয়ের প্রতি। বাট ডাজ ইট রিয়েলি a matter when you actually do not act when you are in power to help them? You are not actually helping them to be empowered, right? You are writing a book for your own benefit, or you will be writing your book for your own benefit. You are not writing it in order to help them at their own cause. তোমার বুক রাইটিং এ হচ্ছে কতটা হেল্প হবে? এবার তুই কোয়েশ্চেন করতে পারিস, you might say that their voices will be represented. Obviously their voices will be represented, but the moment he was in charge of mitigating this revolution, this uprising, you should have been there, form such a dialogue so that their representatives could meet him and their grievances could have been sorted over the table, not over the gunpoint. Right? But you never did that. You never dared to do that. You never dared to take such step, because for you the honor is killing them. For you, your honor will be brought to, the honor you are achieving or trying to achieve, it will be brought to you only when you do the function, do the action that has been expected out of all the situation, or the expectation is from the government who has actually sent you, right? So your propagation or your motive is to eliminate, right? Your motive here is to eliminate, not to understand. But you understand them very well to represent them in the books, right? So when you are understanding them, and I take that the government is not understanding them, you should be the mediator. You should have been the mediator to calm down all the problems through talks, through all the negotiations. But what we find is understanding the rebellious activities, their actions, but he is not taking such step of negotiation. He is taking the hard hand to kill them. But he will describe these possibilities of uprising, their problems, that is the harvest workers' problems, in his book as the prime focus. Such is the hypocrisy. Okay, so he knows very well that he is doing today, the future will forget. But he also knows that if he can change color from world to world, he can represent the particular world in question. আবার হচ্ছে দেখিয়ে দিচ্ছে কি, that is a real picture of the society. ঠিক আছে, কিরকম করে? এটাই হচ্ছে পিকচার অফ দ্য সোসাইটি, বিকজ দে চেঞ্জ color according to the present ruling class or the demands of the ruling class. Okay, you know very well, you are seeing in today's times how the colors are changing. I will not name the colors obviously, from purple to blue, from blue to what can you say, yellow, from yellow to white, white to black, right? Obviously I will never mention the original colors, because I am not doing representing politics over here, but in general that is the trend of the society. Okay, that is the trend of the society. Human beings are the greatest chameleons. সবথেকে বড় গিরগিটি হচ্ছে মানুষরা, তাছাড়া আর কিচ্ছু না। এই যে বলেই তো দিচ্ছে, সে ভালো মতো জানে আজকে সে যেটা করছে সেটা হয়তো কিছু বছর পর ভুলে যাবে, তখন নতুন একটা যুগ চলে আসবে, তখন হচ্ছে আজকে কালোর যুগ আছে, কালকে সাদার যুগ আসবে, আজকে সবুজের যুগ, আজকে নীলের যুগ আছে বা বেগুনির যুগ আছে, কালকে হচ্ছে ম্যাজেন্টার যুগ আসবে বা ব্রাউনের যুগ আসবে, রাইট? সো ফ্রয়েডিয়ান স্লিপ হয়ে গেল একটা, যাই হোক। সো হোয়াট ইউ ফাইন্ড হিয়ার ইজ দ্যাট এই যে চেঞ্জিং ইন কালার অফ দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ড, সেই চেঞ্জিং কালার অফ দ্য ওয়ার্ল্ডে কি, যারা এই সার্ভিসের সাথে যুক্ত তাদের তো পাল্টাতেই হবে, রাইট? অ্যান্ড সেইটাই হচ্ছে সে করছে, সেটাই হচ্ছে এই সেনানায়ক, সে ভালো মতো জানে। বাট দ্য কোয়েশ্চেন রিমেইনস, এই যারা লোকগুলো, যারা সাবঅল্টার্ন, যারা সো কল্ড মাওয়িস্ট, যারা অ্যাকচুয়ালি ট্রাইবালস, রাইট, তাদের কি হবে? তাদের তো রং বদলানোর জায়গা নেই। তারা তো যেরকমভাবে আগের সরকারের সময়ও যেমন ছিল, যেমনভাবে হচ্ছে অপ্রেসড হতো, এখনকার সরকারের সময়ও সেরকমভাবে অপ্রেসড হচ্ছে। মানে রিয়ালিটির কথা বলছি না, আমি গল্পের কথা বলছি। ইন দ্য স্টোরি দে ওয়ার অপ্রেসড ওভার ইয়ার্স, right, by the money lenders and everything. So what we find here is that to tell the truth, এখনকার রিয়ালিটিতে বলছি, এখনকার গভর্নমেন্টের আন্ডারে অনেক উন্নতি হয়েছে দেখা যাচ্ছে ট্রাইবাল সেকশনসের। এবার what we find here is that the bureaucrats, the people who are like Senanayak will actually change colors, right? And Senanayak is their representative, right, in changing colors. But what we find here is that these people who are actually in the margins, they will never be able to change colors and be at the center. Okay, they will never be at the center, and that is why their voices will never be represented. The weaker sections of the society needs to have their voice represented. তবেই হচ্ছে তাদের কথা আসবে। আমাদের এই হ্যাশট্যাগ ব্ল্যাক লাইভস ম্যাটার কেন করতে হচ্ছে কেন? কারণ দে আর স্টিল অ্যাট দ্য মার্জিনস। একজন উসেন বোল্ট যে হচ্ছে ব্ল্যাক ম্যান, সে হচ্ছে ওয়ার্ল্ড রেকর্ড হোল্ডার কন্টিনিউয়াসলি, তবু আমাদের ব্ল্যাক লাইভস ম্যাটার করতে হচ্ছে। সিমিলারলি এভরি লাইফ ম্যাটার, সেটাও কিন্তু ইম্পর্টেন্ট। হোয়াট আই ফাইন্ড হিয়ার ইজ দ্যাট because of this because of people like this who are at the center of power, what do you find? These people actually destroy the hierarchical stature through which the weaker sections of the society can be represented. কেন বলছি এটা? I am saying this because the moment a Bhadra class lok, a gentleman, will be representing them, he would have the flair, he would have the capacity of connections, and in today's days connection is a very important thing. তার এই কানেকশনগুলো কি হবে, সেই কানেকশনের থ্রু দিয়ে সে একটা ট্রাইবাল মানুষ যে তাদের কমিউনিটিকে রিপ্রেজেন্ট করতে চাইছে তার থেকে অনেক গুণ এগিয়ে থাকবে, রাইট, তার বছরের পর বছর নলেজের জন্যে, রাইট? সো হোয়াট আই ফাইন্ড হিয়ার ইজ দ্যাট যেখানটা একজন ট্রাইবাল পারসন তার নিজের কমিউনিটিকে রিপ্রেজেন্ট করতে পারত, হি উড হ্যাভ দ্য চান্স টু রিপ্রেজেন্ট হিজ কমিউনিটি, হি ইজ ল্যাকিং দ্যাট বিকজ অফ দিস chameleon type people who were actually oppressing these tribals at one time and is now changing the color to be their representative, and they would representative in a selective way. Okay, they would represent those facts which are beneficial for them. Okay, and what we see through this is that their original problems will never be represented. যে জিনিসটা তার ভালো লাগছে সে সেই জিনিসটাকে হচ্ছে দেখাবে, right? And what we find over here is that is what is happening. ক্লিয়ার? একটা ট্রাইবাল মানুষ নিজেদের প্রবলেম যতটা ক্লিয়ারলি বলতে পারবে, একটা কলকাতায় থাকা ছেলে, সে কি যে হচ্ছে ইংলিশ মিডিয়ামে পড়ে বড় হয়েছে বা ভালো ভালো জায়গায় পড়ে বড় হয়েছে, যে কোনো দিন ট্রাইবাল সেকশনে যায়নি, সে কি সেটা বলতে পারবে? আনলেস হি হ্যাজ সাম ডাইরেক্ট এক্সপেরিয়েন্স, রাইট? So what we find here is that সেনানায়কও তো সেটাই করছে. He has been to the fields, but he has been at the opposite end, right? And by representing those people, he will actually be changing the party, he will be actually changing the side for his own benefit, not for the benefit of the tribals. Okay, today he is getting rid of the young by means of apprehension and elimination, but he knows people will soon forget the memory of the lesson of blood, right? Obviously অনেক জায়গায় দেখেছিস, অনেক সময়ের হচ্ছে যারা বড় বড় কি বলবো গুন্ডা ছিল এক সময়, they have turned into politicians, they have turned so many big entities. But what we find here is that this Senanayak is saying, or Senanayak's character is being said about by the narrator, that এই যে প্রসেস যেটা সেনানায়ক শুরু করেছে, সেটা কি অ্যাপ্রিহেনশন অ্যান্ড এলিমিনেশন অফ দ্য ইউথ, অফ দ্য রেবেলিয়ন, বাট আ ডে উইল কাম when everything will be forgotten by these people, the lesson of blood. And this is a fact. It is a fact for people. Why do people, or why do politicians do actions before a vote or elections? কেন ইলেকশনে এত কাজ হয়? কেন? দোষটা পলিটিশিয়ানদের অ্যাকচুয়ালি না. পলিটিশিয়ানটা যা করছে সেটা আমাদের কথা চিন্তা করে করছে. আমাদের কথা কি? বিকজ পিপল ইন জেনারেল আর ভেরি ফরগেটফুল. তারা সারা বছর যারা হচ্ছে পায়, যা কিছু পায়, সেগুলোকে ভুলে যাই. আমরা যা যা করি বা যা যা পাই বা যা যা হচ্ছে বেনিফিট পাই, সেগুলো হচ্ছে আমরা অতীতকে ইজিলি ভুলে যেতে পারি. ভালো জিনিস হলে তো আরও বেশি ভুলে যাই, কিন্তু একটা খারাপ জিনিস করুক সেটা সবসময় মনে রাখবো. অ্যান্ড দ্যাট ইজ ওয়াই পলিটিশিয়ানস চুজ দিস অপরচুনিটি অফ ডুইং মোর performances before the elections. But what we do, or what we actually do, we actually critique the political parties, and that ওই তো ভোট এসছে তো বা ইলেকশন এসছে তো তার জন্য এখন কাজ করছে. But the problem is within us. If we remember সারা টার্ম ধরে, সারা 5 বছর ধরে যদি তারা কি করেছে, irrespective of whether they are in government or in opposition, তারা কি করেছে সেটা যদি আমরা মাথায় রাখি, তাহলে আমাদের এই পলিটিক্সের আগে জিনিসটার উপর থাকতে হয় না. তাহলে ভোটের আগে হচ্ছে রাস্তা ঠিক হয় না, তাহলে ভোটের আগে সমস্ত কাজ হয় না, সারা বছর ধরে কাজ হবে আর এফেক্টিভ কাজ হবে, রাইট? এবার বলছি না যে কাজ হয় না, অনেক জায়গায় কাজ হয়, ভালো কাজ হয়. But what we find here is that this description of the society is true through the basic fact that people do forget everything that has been in past, almost everything. ঠিক আছে? তুমি কারোর ভালো করো, সে ঠিক ভুলে যাবে. খারাপ করো, সেটাও হচ্ছে আস্তে আস্তে অন্য লোকের স্মৃতির থেকে মুছে যাবে. যার খারাপ করবে সে ভুলবে না, অন্য লোক ভুলে যাবে. So what we find here is that this existence is very important for this kind of people, and for existence they would love to change his own existence, his own hold in the society, his color in the society. Clear? And at the same time, he, like Shakespeare, believes in delivering the world's legacy into the youth's hand. He is Prospero as well. So what we find here is that he is commanding things, He is believing in commanding things, but at the same time, what he is believing in? He is believing in controlling the existence of people. Okay, by bringing in the legacy of what he is doing to other people. Right. So, this is the stature, this is the position of Mr. Senanayak, and he is the representative of the section of the Bhadralok community, the bureaucratic, the police, who are actually at the mercy of government to control the rebellion. But at the same time, he has his own propaganda, he has his own way of dealing things, where he believes he will mitigate, he will destroy these rebellious acts, and at the same time he will take benefit out of the knowledge that he is gathering from this rebellion. Okay.